Let me quickly come back to the studios a moment here, Prof. We'll get back to you. And Dr. Akyode Afolabi, a whole lot of issues. When you look at the guidelines, it's looking very, very interesting. First, we have the blind or incapacitated voter. There is also a provision for them now, as we understand that the IPO or the overseer knows how to assist them. They call it assistive tactile facilities, which INEC has provided, as well as if in case you make a mistake on your ballot before you deposit, they also make provision that you can ask the officer there to change it for you. These mix in the light of what is happening with this particular election. Does that show in any way that we have progressed from what it has always been?
Well, I think we have actually progressed. In 2011, we were not talking about what to do for people with disability. How do we allow the blind, the physically impaired, to access to vote? And what that means in essence is that we have been disenfranchising a huge majority of the Nigerian people from voting. I know that I've attended several INEC meetings, particularly with people with disabilities, and I noticed that they have done a lot to ensure that they participate in the election. And for us also as civil society, we have also done a lot of voter education to let people know that the special people would have to vote in a particular manner, so that when they are on the queue, they can allow them to go they don't need to queue. They have a separate place which they have to go to ensure that they cast their vote. In terms of voter education, I think a lot of people have done a lot of things. Civil society organization, for example, my organization have been on the field in the Southwest Zone in the last 1 week, and what we're doing storm theater, talking to people under the bridge, talking to market women, talking to religious bodies on the need for people to come out. And if you see what I have in my head, I was saying that people should move out to vote because
tell us some of the new things. So tell us some of the new things that you have gathered from this particular election that you can sell to the people, just in case that they don't know that there are some additions from previous elections.
Well, the card reader is an important thing. So you know now that when you first get that, the first thing you do is that they will check your card reader, so we need to know that. So that itself is a process, and that's why you also get worried, especially for polling units where you have over 500, over 1,000 people. So there's a possibility that we are going to spend more time. So Nigerians need to be much more patient in terms of what would happen tomorrow. So I can see a lot of time wasting because there are more processes than what we used to have. The issue of coded ballot papers also is also important. I know that in Ekiti, in Osun State, that was done, and that was also quite useful because I'm not sure that INEC is going to do that now. The other time, what you have in a particular polling unit might not be the same thing you have in another one, which help in terms of on issues around rigging and ballot snuffing and a whole lot of things like that. There's also the issue of people with disability and a whole lot of other issues here.
We'll come back to you because we have to go back to Abuja and talk to Professor Gambari. Very quickly, we want you to tell us some of your finest moments with this particular election. What do you expect to see tomorrow? Because now we're counting to the hours, and so many people, especially in some other regions. You talked about Sudan. You reminded us of how elections were held in Sudan, and specifically around the Darfur area. You also reminded us of how elections were held in Angola. A couple of other places where we've seen troubles, and elections still went on. In some parts, if not for every part of the Northeast, elections will also hold tomorrow. So what will be your final word to people around that area, as well as for security agents?
First of all, there's tremendous patience. They have to exercise, the voters must exercise tremendous patience, because they realize this is not a situation that Nigeria has been familiar with, has been doing, but it is doable. But it also means that the electoral officers have to be patient, to explain very carefully the processes. And these are already people who are traumatized, and they are operating in an unsteady environment. So it's the responsibility on the part of the electoral officers and the voters themselves is very important, and also the security agents. I think this is where they have to make a major difference, but it's doable, and it's been done elsewhere, and there's no reason why we can't do the same in Nigeria.
Specifically, tell us what were the drawbacks in places where elections were held. I'm talking about trouble spots in other parts of the world. What were the drawbacks? Because for security agencies, definitely they must have done their homework. They must have done their own intelligence gathering, definitely. But from someone like yourself who's been out there before, representing Nigeria, observing and monitoring elections in other parts of the world, what would you have to say to them at this moment?
Well, actually, I was representing at that time, of course, the United Nations in these places that we have mentioned. But nonetheless, the important thing is that the major problems are the fear of insurgents or opposition group or armed movement to attacking polling stations, attacking the IDPs themselves, who are already in a very vulnerable position. That is usually the major drawback. That's why I mentioned earlier that the responsibility of the security agents is particularly important. Also, the party agents, they have to take particular care that they complement the work of the electoral officers to explain patiently the processes, to assure as best as they can that they can vote in relative freedom and in peace. But those are usually the challenges in war zones or in areas where the threats of wanting to disrupt the entire electoral process. Let me mention in this regard that you see, one of the things that tends to deepen peace and the perception of peace when people are able to do ordinary things in schools, clinics, and the ability to vote. So voting itself is a way, even though in the IDP camps and in areas of insurrection, then it brings a sense of normalcy, gradual normalcy, which is what the IDPs needs the most. And what insurgents and opposition groups, armed opposition, they hate the most is to see people beginning to live their relatively normal life.
Well, very quickly, before we let you off, because we have to let you go pretty soon, I know you're very passionate about IDPs on the continent. Now we have IDPs in Nigeria from the crisis around the Northeast. INEC has made it possible for these ones to also cast their ballot on that day. Irrespective of what is going to happen in such camps, don't you think that more on security should be harped concerning those who will be casting their ballot in such places?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you see, fortunately for us, the number of IDPs or the proportion is not that high. Like in Darfur that you mentioned earlier, there were, at the height of the conflict in Darfur, 2 million are internally displaced persons out of a total population of 7 million. That's extremely high in proportion. So, but in the case that we are talking about in Nigeria, it's a lot less, and therefore a bit more manageable.
Well, we'd like to thank you so very much, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, former Foreign Affairs Minister. Thank you so much for speaking with us on Nigeria 2015.
Thank you very much, and it reminds me of Verdict 79, when I was also on television a part of the panel to look at that election in 1979. We are talking about almost, 36 years ago. So the more things change, the more they remain the same in some aspects. But I think we have moved forward in many other respects, because we are talking about PVCs, card readers, and the commitment of INEC, and with the support of the entire people of Nigeria to ensure that this election takes place, that everybody who has an opportunity to vote should be given the opportunity to vote, and their vote must count.
Well, thank you so very much for reminding us of that 79 elections and so many things concerning that particular elections, how much of voter awareness we've been able to gather looking at the population of voters, how it has grown so far. Recall we had Professor Oyebode earlier on. He did tell us how we have metamorphosed from the flamboyancy and so many oratorical skills from politicians from the First Republic to this very moment, reminding us of the parliamentary election. But again, one key thing is what we saw from 1979, which kicked off our start into the presidential elections. Recall then it was the two major groups at that particular time were the NPN and the Unity Party of Nigeria, and how that election brought up Alhaji Shehu Shagari, Nigeria's president at that time. Now we'll go over to Maokwe. She'll be looking at how the figures have been so far from that time till this very moment. Are we doing badly? Have we been able to step up the ante in terms of awareness, in terms of the numbers? Maokwe.